You wake before the sun. The air is warm, thick with the smell of salt drifting up from the harbor, and bread baking in clay ovens somewhere below your window. A cartwheel groans against cobblestone. A rooster calls out, twice, then falls silent. Somewhere nearby, a door creaks open and the city begins to breathe. It is an ordinary morning in Pompeii. You have no reason to look up at the mountain. You never do. It has always been there, quiet, green, endlessly familiar. Farmers grow grapes along its lower slopes. Shepherds graze their flocks across its ridges. Children have grown up playing in its shadow, the way children do near any hill that has never once shown them danger. To you, Vesuvius is not a threat. It is simply home. By the time the sun sets tonight, this city will not exist, and almost no one here knows it yet. Walk with me into the streets of Pompeii, and you step into one of the most vivid cities in the ancient world, a place so alive with detail that, 2,000 years later, we would come to know the names of its bakers. The Forum is already stirring. Bakers slide fresh loaves from stone ovens. Archaeologists would later uncover more than 80 loaves still sitting untouched inside a single oven, preserved for nearly 2,000 years. Wine merchants roll heavy clay amphorae across the pavement, the sound echoing off marble walls. A fishmonger arranges the morning's catch across beds of damp seaweed, the scent sharp and briny in the warming air. Children dart between the legs of shoppers. A woman scolds one for almost overturning a basket of figs. Nobody stops. Nobody looks up. This is simply Tuesday. Or perhaps Thursday, we cannot know for certain. What we do know from careful archaeological dating is that it is late summer in the year 79 AD. Pompeii is a wealthy Roman city of nearly 20,000 people, humming with trade, art, gossip, and ambition. Its streets hold grand bathhouses, an open-air theater, and villas painted in colors so vivid they seem brand new. This was a city that loved beauty. It loved wine, and it loved gossip preserved by the very disaster that would end it. But beneath all that noise, all that ordinary life, the ground beneath Pompeii was already changing, and almost no one had noticed. Here is something the people of Pompeii did not know, and could not have known. Vesuvius was not simply a mountain. It was a volcano, one that had not erupted violently within living memory. Modern geological research indicates the region experienced a massive eruption, roughly 1,800 years before Pompeii's destruction, an event so far in the past that by 79 AD, it survived only in half-remembered myth, if it was remembered at all. There is no strong evidence that the Romans of Pompeii understood the mountain's true nature. To them it was simply fertile land, excellent for vineyards, generous for grazing animals. There had, however, been warnings. 17 years earlier, in 62 AD, a powerful earthquake tore through the region, cracking temple walls and toppling statues. Some structures were still under repair when the final day arrived. Scaffolding and construction materials have been found among the ruins. The philosopher Seneca described panic sweeping through the region, livestock scattering in terror and walls collapsing without warning. But 17 years is a long time, long enough to rebuild, long enough perhaps to forget. By the morning in question, the mountain had been quiet for so long that fear had faded into routine. Archaeological evidence suggests the eruption may actually have occurred in October, rather than the traditionally cited August 24th. Nobody was watching the summit that particular morning. They were watching the market, the harbor, each other. Life along the Bay of Naples continued exactly as it always had. In the nearby town of Misenum, a Roman fleet commander named Pliny the Elder oversaw naval operations, unaware that within hours he would sail toward the greatest natural disaster of his lifetime, and that it would cost him his life. His nephew, a young man named Pliny the Younger, remained behind that day, studying at his uncle's villa. It is because of him that we possess the only surviving eyewitness account of what was about to happen. Without his words, much of what we know about Pompeii's final hours would be pure speculation. But that morning, none of this had happened yet. The mountain was not sleeping. It was waiting. By early afternoon, Pompeii moves at its ordinary rhythm. In the bathhouses, bathers soak in heated pools beneath painted ceilings, their voices echoing off marble. In the amphitheater, a handful of spectators may be gathering early for the day's entertainment. In villa kitchens, servants begin preparing the day's main meal, the smell of garlic and fish drifting into courtyards. Then, without warning, the ground shudders. It is not the first tremor Pompeii has felt this year. Minor earthquakes had become almost background noise in the weeks before. Unsettling, but nothing the city hadn't weathered before. This one is different. Somewhere across the water in Misenum, Pliny the Younger watches something impossible rise above the mountain. He would later write, describing a cloud shaped like an umbrella pine tree, a column shooting violently upward before spreading into a wide, dark canopy. This description is not merely poetic. It remains one of the most scientifically important eyewitness accounts of a volcanic eruption ever recorded. Volcanologists today still use the term Plinian eruption, named in his honor, to describe this exact type of explosive eruption. In Pompeii, the sky begins, almost gently, to change color. At first, it may have looked strange rather than terrifying. An unfamiliar, dark shape rising in the distance, worth a curious glance. Some residents likely paused in the street to watch. Others began gathering their families without fully understanding why. But the wind that day was blowing toward Pompeii, and what was falling from that towering black cloud was not ash alone. It was only the beginning. Within the hour, the sky over Pompeii darkens completely, as though dusk has arrived 8 hours early. Light, porous stones, pumice, blasted violently from deep within the earth, begin raining down across the city, first scattered, then relentless. At first, it is almost gentle. A stone here, a stone there, bouncing harmlessly off stone streets. Then faster, heavier. Within a remarkably short span of time, the fall becomes continuous. The pumice layer accumulated at a rate fast enough to bury ground floors entirely. Archaeological evidence suggests that some residents used pillows, folded cloth, or wooden boards to protect their heads as they fled. Others paused just long enough to gather what they could carry: coin purses, gold jewelry, or small bronze statues of household gods. Not everyone leaves. Some residents believe, understandably, that the danger will pass, as tremors always had before. Some are elderly or ill, or simply unwilling to abandon a home their family has lived in for generations. Some, in the chaos, simply wait too long to decide. By late afternoon, the weight of accumulating pumice has grown so severe that roofs across the city begin to buckle and collapse. Historians and volcanologists agree. This initial phase, as violent as it appeared, was survivable for those who left in time. It was what came next that would not be. For those who chose to flee in the earliest hours, there was a real chance of survival. Archaeological surveys along coastal escape routes, combined with skeletal distribution patterns found at nearby towns, suggest that a significant number of Pompeii's residents did manage to escape, particularly those who left before the heaviest stone fall began. Imagine walking that road, the sky black at what should be midday, stones striking your shoulders through thin cloth, the air thick with sulfur, stinging your throat with every breath. Somewhere behind you, your home, your entire life, disappearing beneath gray stone. You do not look back. You cannot afford to. Those who left early reached safety, most likely in nearby towns like Nuceria or Stabiae, or aboard ships along the coast. Their stories, in some form, likely survived through descendants, through property records, legal documents, and the simple fact that not every family perished. But for those who remained inside the city as night fell, something far more violent was still approaching. By nightfall, Pompeii is barely recognizable. Streets once crowded with merchants now lie buried beneath more than 2 meters of volcanic stone. Buildings groan audibly under the accumulated weight. Some have already given way entirely. For those still trapped, sheltering in cellars and back rooms in spaces they believed would keep them safe, the night stretches on in darkness. Ash chokes the air even indoors. The ground trembles periodically with distant aftershocks. They wait, They do not yet know that the deadliest phase of the eruption has not yet arrived. In the hours before dawn, the eruption changes character entirely. The great column, no longer able to sustain its height, begins to collapse. What follows is known as a pyroclastic surge, a fast-moving cloud of superheated gas, ash, and rock fragments exceeding 100 kilometers per hour, with temperatures that scientific analysis suggests may have exceeded 300 degrees Celsius. For anyone still inside Pompeii, there would have been almost no warning, and almost no chance at all. Centuries later, in the 1860s, an Italian archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli made a discovery that would change how we understood Pompeii's final hours. Fiorelli noticed that the hardened volcanic ash had preserved hollow cavities in the exact shape of the people who died there. By carefully pouring liquid plaster into these voids, Fiorelli recreated, in haunting detail, the final physical positions of Pompeii's victims. Some casts appear to show a parent shielding a child. Others show individuals with hands raised, as though against unbearable heat. Archaeologists urge caution. These casts capture a frozen physical moment, not a certain emotional story. We cannot know what they were feeling, but we can see, without question, that they did not have time to run. Over 1,000 bodies have been recovered from Pompeii and Herculaneum. Researchers estimate the true death toll may be considerably higher. A great many residents likely escaped successfully, leaving no trace in any surviving written record. What remains at Pompeii is a frozen morning, a frozen argument still legible in scratched plaster, frozen loaf of bread prepared but never eaten. A city that did not fade slowly into ruin. It stopped, all at once. For nearly 17 centuries, Pompeii lay buried and forgotten. It was not rediscovered until the 16th century. Systematic excavation began in 1748, a process that continues today. Even now, 1/3 of the city remains unexcavated, waiting. What Vesuvius destroyed, it also preserved. The ash sealed it away from air, looters, and the slow decay that erases most ancient cities. This disaster has given us one of the most complete windows into daily Roman life that exists anywhere on Earth. We know what they ate, what they joked about, who they loved, and what they scrawled on tavern walls when no one was watching. Vesuvius has erupted many times since 79 AD. Volcanologists consider it one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world. Nearly 3 million people currently live within its potential impact zone. The mountain that once seemed silent and safe is still there, still standing quietly over the bay. Empires rise, cities are built. We wake each morning certain that today will be ordinary. But history has never made that promise. It waits for someone willing to relive it.